This is Sue Greenwell with Awakened Stories. I'm here today with Deanna Carr from the Mystical Moonlight. Hey, Dee, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good. Today, our topic is giants, and this is something I'm really excited to find out more about. So, you know that on occasion I send you pictures of giant skeletons and the skulls and things that they've dug up.
Hmm.
Are those pictures real?
Yes, they are definitely real.
Okay. Um, from what I have researched, there's lots of different origins of giants, and I don't know what's true and what's not true. I'm assuming there's many, we'll call them types or species of giants.
Hmm.
Some are extraterrestrial in origin, is what I'm assuming. Some maybe from inner Earth, some may be created. Can you kind of expand on that a little bit for us?
So there are different categories of giants. Most of them that have lived on Earth that we see on the outer layer, like where we are, they have derived from inner Earth. Um, the ones that are in inner Earth have come from different uh, planes or different, planets, but they derive from our inner Earth. And the reason we have the bones is because they've come out.
Okay.
You don't see a lot of giants around nowadays because they've mostly been killed off or have gone into hiding or have left.
Okay. So what you're saying is some of them came from other planets, but they went to inner Earth, and
Yeah.
then somehow they found their way out to the surface, and they lived, and then they were killed off, I assume, by humans for the most part.
Hmm.
Right.
Yes.
All right. Why did they come to Earth from their planet?
That it all depends on what was going on with their planets. For
Okay.
the most part, most of them were trying to find sanctuary.
Right.
They're trying to find a place where they could survive. Um, their planets could have been dying, so they've come for different reasons, but the most part is for survival, which
Okay.
is ironic.
And is our gravity different here on Earth than their home planets, would you say? Like, do they have a hard time surviving here?
No, no, they didn't have a hard time. Now, inner Earth is a little more like their gravitational pull. It's a little bit different than what we're used to.
Okay.
So coming out the outer layer, it did wear on them a little bit more than inner Earth.
Yeah.
So that's why there's multiple reasons they've kind of disappeared, but we do derive from giants also. Like most of us do.
Oh,
Um, so what happened was once they came out to inner earth, they started, breeding and, having kids and all that. And as they stayed out here longer, they started to shrink because of the gravitational pull. So when they're in inner earth, they can stay in that true giant form. But as when they come out to, outer earth, they start to shrink down over time. Now it takes a long time, and that's why I say most of us derive from them because it's not everybody. We're all here from different planets and all that. But for the most part, we derive from them.
okay. So we know there are different types of giants or different, I don't know,
Mhm.
categories, however you want to talk about it. So these giants that mated with humans, they were probably 7 to 10 feet tall, would you say? They weren't like the 50-foot tall ones, I'm assuming.
No, no, I'm not saying they mated with humans.
Oh,
They mated with, other giants, but because
oh,
of the gravitational pull, it
okay.
started to shrink them down.
Okay.
So they were large giants that started to shrink.
Okay. So basically, over time, because of gravity, it became more efficient for their bodies to become, smaller.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. I feel like I need to delete that whole thing because I've heard from so many sources that they came and they mated with humans, and that's why we have giants that are say 7 to 10 feet tall. We have 14-foot tall ones. We have 50 feet tall ones.
Yeah,
You know.
so I mean, they're later on down the line, they did start breeding with humans,
Okay.
but from the beginning, it was large giants that made it together, had large, and as time went on and as centuries went on, they began to shrink down. So at one point, they would have been 50 feet tall, but over time, they shrunk down to 7 feet tall. And we do have tall people, the tall people that we have now, they are most likely deriving from the giants because they still have it in them. They're not, completely narrowed down. They still have some of that gene in them.
Wow, okay. So were these giants that came out and were living on the planet Earth, did they have a certain geographic region that they lived in primarily, or?
No, they kinds of they're roamers. They liked different, it's kind of like how we are now. They like different climates for different reasons. Um, they did kind of stay where it was less chaotic. So they kind of gave each other space. They were a little territorial. So that was an issue. If there's too many people in little space, they, became anxious. But you also have to think they're huge. So, being close to somebody, you want your space.
Okay.
So that is one reason they kind of stayed a little bit sparse from each other.
Okay. So were these giants, let's say, aggressive, like toward humans? Would they capture a human, or did they just
No,
all right,
it's not like they're gonna eat humans like the all those movies dictate. They were territorial. They wanted their space, but they weren't going on hunting sprees.
okay. Because I've heard that basically there were giants that lived in the southwest of the US,
Mhm.
that basically the American Indians basically trapped and killed. I've heard that from so many sources, and I'm not sure if that's true or not.
Yes, they were killed off.
Okay.
So different cultures, different species have
Yeah.
killed them.
Okay.
And usually it's because of fear. When
Okay.
you see a massive person, you're going to freak out.
Yeah.
So it did derive from fear. And like I said, most of them were either killed off or went back into hiding or left.
Okay.
So there are still giants, but not on our plane.
Okay. So they are in inner Earth right now?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, they came out, they lived, and a bunch of them got killed. And then some of them stayed and they shrunk down, if you will. And then they
Yeah.
said, we're going to go back.
Yeah. They're like, what were we thinking?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I've seen pictures of a lot of giants or very tall people, we'll just say, in the Egyptian area.
Mhm.
That's why I was asking, were they concentrated in a certain area?
No, you're gonna find that, they're finding remnants of them in certain areas because that's where they're killed off.
Okay.
So, they at the towards the ends before they either left or went into hiding, they were running for their lives.
Mm.
So they had to find places, and usually the more deserted, the better.
Mhm.
Um, they thought the desert would have been a better area because at this time that they were being killed off, it was more desert like than rainforest like. So they were trying to find sanctuary, trying to find even a way back down under. So some of them couldn't remember their way back into inner earth, or they just didn't know how. So they were trying to figure that out too. So you have a mixture of reasons why you find them in like specific areas.
Okay. Okay. So there are literally no giants, like true giants, we'll say, living on the planet surface of Earth at this point.
Well, no, there's none in the game zone.
Okay.
If you go outside the game zone, then yes, there are giants
Are they
on.
living? Are they living publicly? Like, are they living out in society?
No, they're still
Okay.
hidden.
They're still hidden.
They're like clumps. Like they're in clumps on the outside of the game zone. So they have their resources.
Right. Okay. So there's giants on the surface of Earth, but not our part of Earth. And
Yes.
they're kind of living in, we'll call it seclusion or
Yeah.
hiding. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
They're still trying to stay together so that way they have power in numbers.
Okay. So what else should I ask about giants? Like there's so much I don't know,
There's a lot people don't know.
right?
The misconception was, that they ate skull and bones, and they were these territorial, mean creatures, and they really weren't. I mean, they were territorial. They liked their space, but you also have to think, like, are you happy if you didn't have any space? Like, you think about it like if you were them. So, um, they were territorial in a sense. They only, protected what they had, what they needed to protect. And, we're always given it that the other person's the bad guy. But
Yeah.
if we look at the history, it's never the case. Whoever the bad guy is probably the opposite.
Right.
So, they needed help. They weren't given help. So they did what they could to survive.
Okay.
And unfortunately, that, a lot of them did die. We do have remnants of them now. I saw one the other day where they're in a plain mask. They had their mask on, they had their helmet on, but they're bones. They did have technology. So it wasn't like what we think of them, like, as cave oriented cavemen in a sense. They did have updated systems. They did have technology that they could use. They were smart. They still are smart. So they do have a sense of what's going on, how to protect themselves. They just don't have the power. When a lot of people are going against you, they're trying to kill you, you really don't have too much power of that. You can only do what you have access to. So there's a lot of misconception about that.
Okay. When you said you saw a giant the other day, I guess I didn't understand or hear what you were saying properly. Can you explain that more?
A, picture, a picture
Oh,
of a giant that was
oh,
skull and bones and a mask,
uh,
and like a pilot.
all right.
So it
Oh,
was like
really?
they crash landed and they were still in their uniform as they passed away.
Oh, I did not know that. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
So yes, that is one of the big misconceptions.
When we were in Bosnia a few years ago, we were at the top of the pyramid there, and you said you saw a giant walk by, and it was as big
Mhm.
as a mountain. Can you explain a little bit more about that and where that giant came from, or, that kind of give us the scenario there?
Okay, so yeah, so while we're on the Bosnian pyramids, I had this vision of the area. There was no housing, there was no nothing. It was just this giant walking through, and it was huge. It was bigger than the mountains. It did come from inner earth, and from my understanding, it came from where those Bosnian pyramids are. Yeah, there's not too much more that we need to discuss now, but I'm sure if anybody has questions about giants, they can always put it into the comments, or we can always do another video if there's a lot of questions about them. There is a lot of information, so this is at least the beginning parts.
It's the tip of the iceberg, and comments are greatly appreciated, and we will do more as time allows. Thank you so
Yeah,
much, Dee. Appreciate
thanks.
it. Bye-bye.
Bye.